So, I have been talking about this idea of how the family in Hamapekekon represented a particular homogenized upper caste Hindu milieu, which you would be finding it difficult to locate in the Indian milieu because there's such a homogenized family. Uh, while the post-liberalization society would the post-liberalization ethos were preordained in the family, there were some cultural codes again which you will realize which are pre-liberalization, the ideas which are indigenous, ideas which are particularly a North Indian milieu, a North Indian upper caste milieu. Like no booze or no non-veg. So these were ideas, no cigarettes, no alcohol, or all these kind of ideas are kind of the cultural codes which are embedded in the storyline. These are as food is fetishized and food is given more importance in the idea of the film. There are also these ideas which are ingrained, the ideas of a very vegetarian Indian society, a vegetarian Indian family, a family which does not encourage the idea of booze or alcohol or cigarette so this kind of cultural milieu is points towards a certain religious and caste identity markers. So the markers of the cultural markers are quite literally ingrained all throughout the film. Like for example, the constituency of wealth. For example, the idea of largesse and excess is shown in the milieu of, for example, the wedding. So whenever a wedding happens in any family in the Indian condition, you will realize that the weddings are a showcase of the excess, and thus wealth is naturalized in this family through the idea of the wedding. And there are two weddings in these films. But we find a character, and you might argue in this, we find a character of the servant that is the only marginalized character in the whole cinema. The character of Lallu, who is the servant of the home, the servant of the family. He is the only servant that you come. Very few servants are there. It's actually almost like the marginal class is almost eradicated from the storyline of the script. Apart from Lallu, and Lallu is a servant in the family, but you see there is a very good bonhomie, or let's say camaraderie, between the lead character that is played by Salman Khan called Prem and Lallu. So they are very close friends, yet Lallu is the servant in the home, and thus his class signs are attempted to be eradicated by this friendship. He is made a member of the family, so his class backgrounds are not talked about, they are not to be presented in the film. He is a friend of Prem, and also he is a servant in the family. And one of the major criticisms of the film come from the fact that Bajatia eradicates the problem of subaltern representation. He is not interested in any other class in his film. He is not interested in showing a very balanced and neutral representation of the Indian class system or the caste system. He excludes any poor person in his canvas. There is nobody poor. There cannot be any lack of wealth or any lack of food in the film. There can only be an excess of all of these ideas. So Bajatia, what Bajatia doesn't like, he erases it. What Bajatia's in the schematic of the Bajatiya world of largesse and excess of wealth and food and song and humor and romance, he just erases those others. He does not want anything that goes against the grain of this kind of a representation. One interruption in the film is Lallu's telegram which he receives, and after this, one of the character in the film falls down the stair and she dies. One of the major characters, which is played by Renuka Shahani, she falls down the stairs. So there is an accident, there is an aberration in the film. So it almost comes as a tragic relief in the script. Otherwise, there wasn't a script at all to this point. There was nothing happening. There was only fun and frolic and romance and humor. So this is the first point where there is a twist, and it can be considered to be a tragic relief from what has been happening, because and the director could actually dismantle of what he had created. He had created this larger than life world in Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, in the family. So this falling down the stairs and death in the family could have been that moment where he could have dismantled all of these constructions of happiness that he had done, all of this construction that he had done of the kind of family. So there was this moment, there was this chance, because this tragic moment also provides a relief to the audience. But what happens is something very, very interesting. What happens in this moment is something which brings back the old Hindi formulaic scene making. There is nothing ingenious or genius about this script. So the protagonist Prem decides to sacrifice his love for the sister of Pooja who dies. So he is ready to sacrifice his love and give his love in marriage to his elder brother. So this is the old formulaic story that Hindi cinema has been following for a long time. So Hum Aapke Hain Kaun falls back again on the old formulaic story. So this moment of tragedy, this moment of tragic relief in the story had the opportunity of providing a real story and providing an opportunity of newness to the audience and novelty. But Barjatya fails in this attempt. Although he has the opportunity in this momentous occasion to create something new, because his audience probably demanded something new, his story demanded something new, because the story had nothing up to this point. But what he does is he falls back again on the old story of how the hero sacrifices his love, and then how the elder brother accepts his proposal, because he doesn't know the younger brother is in love with this girl. And we are forced again, after this tragic relief moment of tragedy, we are again forced towards another wedding, the second wedding in the film, and we are again forced towards another utopia of celebration, of happiness again coming to the family, of again the idea of fun and frolic, and everything again falls in place. That moment of where something went wrong is again corrected. Now everything is good again, everything can be celebrated again. The family have come back to normalcy almost. So the new marriage has the ability to bring about everybody in that again the moment of, so they go back into their past when the earlier marriage happened and they were happy. So they again have this occasion of going back to the past and be happy, and supposedly a happy ending, because the story is going to end again with another wedding. So this story again then, although it had the opportunity of providing a new sort of a twist to the audience, does not do that. It does not do that, and it falls back upon that fun and frolic that Bajatia had started in his initial part of the film. But as we are critiquing this text called Hum Aapke Hai Kaun, it would also be important to notice that the world that has been created by the Suraj Bajatia in Hum Aapke Hai Kaun, it's a world, because remember the idea of representation I talked about, because the world Bajatia has created looks like desirable to the audiences, because this is proven by the huge success, commercial success that the film received. People, it seems, were in want of that kind of a representation. They needed that kind of a desirability. They wanted that kind of a world of their own, and this desirability element probably is what stuck with the audience. Although Hum Aapke Hai Kaun veered away from the traditional Hindi cinema text, yet the audiences seem to accept, because the amount of desirability of the world that Bajatia has created was very high among the audience. The audience wanted that world. People wanted that kind of a world for their own. The representation of money and wealth, that extravagance that is there in the film, is not critically questioned anywhere in the film. Money is not questioned, wealth is not questioned, neither do the audience question this. How does it come? This illusion, this illusionary world that the cinema created, this film created, is not questioned by the audience, and that's why you see the success of the film, because it does not question, it is preordained, as I had already. So the fetishized representation of money, that money can buy happiness, family, romance, is actually the world that has been fetishized. So this whole world, this make-believe world, has been fetishized in the film. This is one of the deepest social need of the audience. This is what people wanted, and this fetishized representation created this false illusion of desirability of this world. Because money could buy you a happy family, there was a lot of happiness, as I talked about. There was a happy family, there was a romance which was successful at the end, there was a food all throughout from the beginning to the end, and a lot of fun, a lot of games, a lot of antakshari being played, and thus this desirable illusionary world was one of the social need of the audience, and that is what makes the film a successful film. The market, the post liberalization market embraces this film. It says that this capital centric, fetishized, market oriented film is what sells, because this commodification of the film, this marketization of the film has happened within the milieu of that upper class and the traditional Hindu cultural belief. This appropriation of religion has happened in the film. See the motives of religion, the motives of class are very overt, and they are very successful in the film. So this upper caste, upper class Hindu belief, vegetarian, no alcohol, a very morally upright family. So this milieu, when is married with the idea of commodification, is attractive to the Indian post-liberalization market, and that whole idea is what explains why this film became such a commercial success, because it, after all, it sold the, it is commodification. It sold the idea of the family, it sold the idea of romance, it sold the idea of a happiness, it sold all of these ideas in a preordained way, as if wealth gives you everything. And the post liberalized society gladly, gleefully accepted, because this was part of a deep social need for the audience. The audience wanted it. They also wanted to be part of such a society, of such a family, of such, they needed such kind of wealth. And this probably explains of how in a post liberalization society we see a new kind of, and after Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, we see many other such films which come to occupy this particular. In fact, Suraj Bajatia continues to make such kind of films one after another. His movies included, let's say, Viva, Hum Saath Saath Hai, and they come to occupy this social space of a particular milieu. So his society would constitute of a certain narrow segment of Indian society. It did not bother itself with any other societal problem. It did not just bother with societal problem, it did not have space for any other people. It did not have space for anybody who was poor. It did not have space for anybody who did not fit into that family. And this sold very well, and thus the success of the film could be explained in this manner. Thank you. And there are some other films that in this genre of films that have been made in the 90s, and in fact in the late 20s. In fact, we see a lot of other NRI based films that were being marketed during this time, and all of these concepts constitute elements which were started by Suraj Bajatia in Hum Aapke Hain Kaun. Thank you very much for the class.